Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. It occurred to me, I meant to say at the top that for your role in Tonya, you've been nominated for every award possible. I think they've made some up, but including the SAG Award. Were you a SAG Award winner for your role in The Big Short? Oh no, they didn't win, but were you nominated as part of the ensemble? Because when you play yourself, I don't know how that works.
I've never even been to the SAG Awards.
You're
this year will be my first time ever.
Oh my gosh.
So I didn't hear that Big Short was even nominated for. I didn't even realize.
Well, good news.
I remember going to the Oscars that year because I presented and I was like backstage and everyone's like, well done on your movie. And I'm like, I really can't claim that The Big Short is I did half a day of work like sipping champagne in a bathtub.
That is the way
I wouldn't
to work.
call it work at all. Yeah. I said to Adam McKay, I'm like, I've gotten far more credit than I deserve for my part in this film.
But you actually make economics interesting. Like, that isn't easy to do. You fully deserve the credit, I have to say.
I'm glad.
I am curious. I usually, because this is an audience of SAG actors, I usually like to ask about how actors got their SAG cards, but you are not from here. The accent is not just affectation. You're from Australia. Yeah. What was actually your first job in the business when you sort of knew you wanted to be an actor?
First job in America or first job?
No, just as an actress, yeah.
It was this indie film shot on the Gold Coast, which is where I'm from in Australia, and it never got released, or I've never even seen it, but it's like it was very, very low budget, like lower than an indie film, but more like a student film sort of thing, but it was a thriller sort of thing called ICU.
Do you worry not worry, but do you expect it to come out any day now? I mean,
I really hope it doesn't. But it was a chance to be on a film set. No matter how small the set was, it was still a film set, and that was like a dream come true.
I have to say, I actually love the title.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of clever. It was all about voyeurism and, yeah.
So you're making this sound good. Now I see it.
Oh, well, I mean, I haven't seen it, so I can't tell, but it was, like I said, very, very low budget.
Sure. I think we've all been there.
In my friend's apartment. Yeah, so.
So obviously on to bigger things with Tonya. How did this script find you? Because were you are also a producer on the movie. Yeah. Were you looking for things specifically to act in or just produce or both? And
I read it as a producer initially. Our company was looking for female-driven content and heard this script was going around, and Stephen, the writer, wrote it on spec, so it was available. It wasn't attached to any production house or studio, and when I read it, I just was fascinated and mind-boggled, and I knew immediately that I wanted to play Tonya and produce, so I met with Stephen the next day and Brian Unkelis, who had jumped on board like the day before we did actually, and kind of pitched myself to play Tonya and to produce, and they agreed.
You had to pitch yourself, but was there any sort of audition process, or they were not stupid and said, of course, you can play Tonya Harding?
I mean, I thought I was going to have to do a lot of convincing, and I was like, well, it's a very American character, and I'm obviously not American, and I actually, when I read the script, didn't even know it was a true story, so I wasn't familiar with the whole thing, but my angle on it was, I don't have any preconceived notions about this person that the rest of the world seems to hate so much, and I think that's a better way to play the character, and we all saw the project the same way immediately. We all shared the same, passion for the script and concerns about the script. All that the gang kind of got along so quickly. It turned into a family very quickly. Our little team Tonya, it was great.
I mean, when these events happened, I think you were 2 years old, so you can
4, yeah.
You can be forgiven for not knowing it was real. But was there a point, like while reading the script, when you started to wonder?
A couple of times I was like, no, this can't be real. This can't. I mean, they're just using a mockumentary style sort of framing device throughout. That's all. This cannot actually have happened. And then when I got to the end and it said, where they all are now sort of thing, I was like, oh my God, I think this is true. And I went online and I realized that, it wasn't just based on a true story, like the exact specifics, like the moment that Shane Stant, after he's hit Nancy, was running away with the baton in his hand and comes across locked doors, and instead of hitting it with he used his head, like, even that happened. I mean, I just kept finding more, and I was like, this is unbelievable. It's funny that way, though. I mean, I really feel like real life is often crazier than the films, for sure.
I mean, but obviously it's not a documentary. It's literally not a documentary. And you're allowed to take some creative license, but was there one specific thing other than what you just mentioned that you were like, this can't be true, this can't be true, oh my God, it's true?
I remember reading the description of Lavana and just like the fur coat and the bird on the shoulder and everything. I was like, wow, this writer is so odd and specific. and then I saw the footage of her with the bird on the shoulder, and I was like, it just never ceases to amaze, yeah.
And this is something I love. The writer, Stephen Rogers, he basically told you had to cast Allison Janney.
Yeah, so Stephen and Alison have known each other for years and years, and they went to the neighborhood playhouse together in New York, and he kept writing roles for Alison, and she never got to play them. They always gave them to, someone else. And since he wrote this script on spec, he kind of had the freedom to stipulate his deal points, and he said, it's Allison Janney for the part of Lavana, or it's a no deal. And we were like, oh, well, twist our arm, we'll take her. And she hadn't actually read the script at that point, so he had kind of made that deal. We stipulated that in his deal without actually having given it to her to read. But she, obviously, as soon as she read it, she loved the character and wanted to play her.
I mean, after going like, you wrote this for me?
Yeah. She, funnily enough, didn't question their friendship based on the fact that he wrote that for her. She was excited to play Lavana, yeah.
At what point did you become interested in producing? I mean, was it, we all know that there's, not so much this year, but there's generally a dearth of good female roles. Were you always wanting to produce, or was something you sort of felt, spurned into?
No, I never thought I wanted to produce, because I don't think I fully understood what a producer does. I thought it was more of the crunching numbers as opposed to, and figuring out the financing as opposed to the creative development, which half of it is the creative development, and I love that side of it. And I do love the business side of it too. I don't love doing 9-hour closing calls with bonding agencies, but the rest of it I really love. And it's something, honestly, a friend had a script and everyone was like, it's too weird, you can't make it. And I was like, I think it's great, let's make it. And so that's how it kind of started, and then it kind of spawned into the idea of wanting to create more roles, not just for female people in the industry, like female directors, writers, actors, not just me, anyone, that was kind of the thesis of the company to begin with, and that's the direction it kind of started going in. But no, once I started doing it, and I also thought there'd be a real conflict of interest between, when producing and acting in a project. I thought, well, on one hand, an actor's going to want, the actor in me is going to want another take, and on the other hand, the producer in me is going to say, we can't afford overtime. So is this going to be too much of a conflict on set? And it wasn't. They actually really go hand in hand. I don't know how many people in this room act and produce, but I found that it goes hand in hand beautifully. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I could kind of recognize potential production issues months in advance because I was looking into it in a more specific way as an actor, and vice versa. I was so immersed in the world as a producer. Like when I walked onto set, it wasn't like, oh, okay, this is, I guess, the house I grew up in. It was like, I've seen every location that we recce'd. I was here when we recce'd this. I was here when we picked that wallpaper. I remember the it was so much easier to immerse myself in the world and the character, having done the producing side of it, having been on board for so many months beforehand.
We actually have a question from the audience, and you might have sort of addressed this, but it's from William Harrison. Don't be shy. There you are. Hi. Wants to know, as a producer on this film, what ended up being your favorite part of the filmmaking process from behind the camera?
I actually really loved watching the scenes I wasn't in. And do you know what was a real guilty pleasure? Watching audition tapes. Because it's like, I obviously have never been able to do that before, and it felt like I was doing something really naughty by watching them. I was like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. But watching everyone's audition tapes, and I mean, it's awful because I've done a million audition tapes, and you always have this fear like, oh gosh, what are the people going to say? They're going to nitpick me and say, oh, what is she wearing, or why did she say it like that, or, you know, make fun of me or whatever. And now I've been on the other side. I'm like, oh yeah, everyone does watch the audition tapes and they're like pretty harsh. And it's kind of terrifying, but no, it was great. It was exciting to like see someone like Paul Walter Hauser's audition tape come through and just be like, wow, his take on the character was so different to the last 100 tapes I've just watched. And he just made this dialogue, he turned it into something else completely. And that was so exciting to discover, being on that side of things. I really loved watching the audition tapes.
So you had a lot of say in not only the director, Craig Gillespie, your fellow countryman, but the cast? We're in a really wonderful position where we could genuinely cast the best people for the role. It wasn't find a name, you know. Our financiers were incredible like that. They were like, no, you know, pick the people who were right for the job, and that gave us the freedom to be like Julianne Nicholson, one of the greatest actresses that people don't talk about enough, and it's like, yeah, she would be perfect for this. And same thing, like Paul's tape coming through and Sebastian's tape coming through. I was like, who is this unknown actor I've never seen before? This tape is incredible. And then I IMDb'd him and I was like, whoa, it's the guy in the Gossip Girl TV show and Marvel movies. Like, are you kidding me? He just like was so Jeff. He just totally transformed. And yeah, we did chemistry reads together, Sebastian and I, and a couple other actors going for Jeff. So that whole process was great too. Kind of like doing audition, but knowing I already had the part was lovely. Unfortunately, you were saddled with Allison Janney, who just brought the whole thing down.
Oh God, what a drag! Yeah, it was amazing. And I was like, I've been quoting Allison Janney one-liners my whole life, and now I'm like watching her create new Allison Janney one-liners. It was wild.
You're like, yay! I get to have a knife thrown at me by
I was like, do it again. Yeah.
I am curious because you mentioned auditions. You've been working in this business for quite a while. Are you good at auditioning? I still am terrified. Like, public speaking scares me. This actually, I'm not scared doing this right now, but like the idea of like doing a speech, that scares me. Auditions you should get used
terrify me. I get nervous like doing the chemistry reads, even when like I said, when I know that I've already got the part, and I still find that nerve-wracking. Yeah, I find them really scary.
Did you have any of those nightmare auditions that we hear so much about?
Yes, oh my God, I had a terrible audition once. It's kind of a long story. Do we have time to like?
I think we have time.
I want to get out of here. Okay, anyways, in America, obviously, the name of medications is different to it is in Australia. I had this like really small day surgery thing the day before a big audition that I really wanted the role for, and I was in so much pain. But I was at my friend's house, and he had just had a root canal, and I was like, oh God, I'm in so much pain, but I've got this audition tomorrow. And he's like, oh well, here, I've got painkillers from the root canal I just had. Take them, you know, when you wake up before your audition, you'll be fine. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you so much. And he's like, here, take, he's like, and I was like, what is it? And he's like, oh, it's Percocet. And I was like, never heard of it. It must be like Panadol, which is like Tylenol, you know, like some, not a big deal. And he's like, here, take 2. And I was like, got it. And when he said take 2, I thought he meant like, here, you should take 2 of them as the dosage, but really he meant here, take 2 just in case you need to. Anyways, I wake up, I'm getting ready for this audition. Don't get time to eat breakfast, or on an empty stomach. I have 2 Percocets for the first time ever. I'm like driving to this audition, and like halfway there, I was like suddenly like, oh my God, what a lovely day it is. I've got like one hand out the window. I mean, I was off my head, and I was like, I don't know, this is a great day. I'm feeling great about this audition. I was completely like off my head, and it was a terrible audition, I'm sure, but I was trying to do this audition. I remember curling up on the couch, and like the whole thing was terrible. And I was going for my driver's test right afterwards to get my American license. And I was like, I knew I was like, I am not okay. I cannot do a driver's test. And fortunately, my friend worked at Sony, which is where I was doing the audition, and I like ran to her office and I was like, "Can you give me food or something? I think I'm high. I'm not sure, but I think I'm high. Help me." It was hilarious.
See, this is one of those situations where I do hope that tape exists somewhere.
I really hope it doesn't. I have no idea what I did in that audition, but I didn't get the role or a call back, so I'm sure it wasn't good.
So for preparing for Tonya, we actually have a question from, is it Brendan Flannery? Wants to know how much interaction did you have with Tonya in preparation for the role?
I purposely didn't meet her until right before we started shooting. Because there was such a huge amount of footage online, I could kind of study her from afar pretty thoroughly, actually very thoroughly. And I did that for, 6 months. I watched every clip on her just on repeat and listened to her constantly. And I mapped out the character as if it was a character not based on a real life person, just a fictional character. And I made all the decisions based on the information I had, and I could study her mannerisms, her dialect, all that kind of stuff from afar. And then in that way I could keep the character and Tonya separate in my mind. And I felt I needed to do that. I felt if I kind of muddied the waters and knew that it was just too intimidating, the thought of playing a real life person who was going to see the film. I feel like I would have held back on set and tried to sugarcoat things and make her, seem as great as possible. And, that's not really doing justice to the character or her story. And then right before we started shooting, I flew to Portland with Craig, our director, and met her, and by that point it didn't alter anything I'd already decided to do with the character at all, because she's very candid. When her interviews, she was exactly the same in real life. I mean, there was nothing really to alter anyway. And I just explained to her, like, I'm playing a character and I see Tonya as a character, and I'm embodying your spirit and your circumstances, but I'm not trying to replicate you, if that makes sense. And she was great about it, very understanding. And then I didn't see her again until the premiere. And we text, throughout shooting, but she wasn't a consultant. She wasn't allowed on set. She wasn't allowed to have a say in what we shot or how we shot it or anything like that. We really wanted to try and be unbiased in that way. So, but we spoke throughout, just out of respect. I'd be like, hey, it's day one, or hey, happy Christmas, or whatever. But she was very understanding.
What was her first reaction when she saw it? Did she say anything to you?
Not to me specifically. She said I think Stephen was the first person to speak to her, and I gathered that she found it to be a very emotional experience watching it, as I imagine it would be. And she said she laughed and she cried, and she said there was something she didn't agree with, primarily the moments told from Jeff's point of view. She's like, I didn't know about the letters. And I was like, I know, just like, we have to say Jeff's point of view. But she said we were pretty spot on. She was like, when Sebastian started yelling, it just like took her right back, and, yelling as Jeff, of course, and said Lavana was like practically her mom. And she said that she felt like she finally had some closure, which was nice to hear.
And now that the movie's out, you mentioned she came to the premiere. I saw her at the Golden Globes.
Yeah, and she came to the Globes as well, yeah.
So it's okay to, like, sort of, have fun with her now.
Oh yeah, the Globes was hilarious sitting next to Tonya. It was like like I said, very unapologetic, and I mean, she was like, I'm gonna go say hi to Oprah, and I was like, oh God, don't say hi to her. I was like, okay. And she's like, Meryl, let's get a picture. I was like, oh my God, Meryl Streep. She asked Tom Hanks to take a picture of her and I was like, oh my God. And she was, she at one point, because when she was about to do the press line, because it is really scary doing like the red carpet, it's really intense and you're kind of on your own and it's like a cattle call and whatever. But apparently I wasn't with her at this point, but she was kind of getting a bit panicky and scared about doing that. And a lovely lady in the line helped her and like, okay, stand, I'll be waiting for you, blah, blah, blah. And then we're sitting at a table. She's like, that's the lovely lady. Here, come here. This is the lovely lady who helped me when we were doing the red carpet. And I was like, oh, hello, Sharon Stone. Lovely lady. Lovely lady.
It's amazing.
It was hilarious, yeah.
And can we talk about the physical preparation for the role? I believe it was Juanita wanted to know if you had to learn to actually skate, and how difficult was it?
Yes, I did, and very difficult. Anyone here figure skate? Anyone done it before? Right, okay, so it's like, it's a brutal sport, and it looks like it's not, but it really, really is. I grew up in Australia and there's no ice where I'm from, so I didn't ice skate, but I was obsessed with the Mighty Ducks films, and I wanted to be an ice hockey player so bad that I'd just wear my rollerblades and, you know, have my hockey stick and run, like, skate around like that. So I thought, oh, well, when I moved to America, I was like, I'm in America now, I can finally play ice hockey, and I joined a league 7 years ago, and I've played for like half a season until I started working on Pan Am. That was the extent of my ice skating knowledge, and I really oversold that part of it when I did my initial pitch to Stephen. I was like, oh yeah, I played ice hockey. I'm a great skater. In hindsight, I was really just running on the ice with so much padding on. There was little to no repercussions, and once I had no padding and a toe pick on the end of the ice skates, because figure skating skates and ice hockey skates are very different, it was like a world of pain, and I really had to go back to basics and learn how to do it. But I had an amazing skate coach who actually choreographed for Nancy Kerrigan back in the day.
You're kidding?
Yeah. She was asked to choreograph for Tonya as well, but she said no at the time. And it was really hard. I did it, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week for 4 months, and it was a lot.
Did the choreographer, did you ask her anything about Nancy? I mean, it's not really about Nancy, so...
Yeah, I just wanted to know about the figure skating world. I'm like, wow, and when Tonya talks about it, it sounds like there's so many politics, and she's like, yeah, there is. And it sounded, it was fascinating to hear about what the world was and the sport was like. And but she was amazing, and she's like, I had no idea that all this, that Tonya had the upbringing she did or was going through what none of us knew. We just... kind of like everyone else, kind of judged her based on the headlines or her appearance, and she's not a dainty little thing. No one really thought of her as being a victim, so it was easy to kind of categorize her as the villain, I guess. And she said she kind of saw that now in hindsight.
So not only capturing her physicality, but some of these really intense fight scenes with both Allison Janney and Sebastian Stan in character. I mean, did you ever get hurt?
I did when we were doing the skating, but not during any of the fights. I mean, you always get bruises and stuff. I mean, I do anyway, because I get caught up in the moment and kind of don't feel it at the time. And the next morning I wake up and I'm like, whoa, like black and blue. So yeah, just like bruises and stuff like that. But I did herniate a disc in my neck when I was...
While you were ice skating?
Skating, yeah.
Were you able to continue skating?
Well, had I not been a producer on it, I probably would have been like checking out now to go do rehab and fix my neck. But because I was a producer, I was like, we can't afford that. I'm just, shoot me up with some steroids, let's keep going. And so that I just would get MRIs at the end of each week to make sure it was safe to keep going. And
that's the other thing.
That sounds really bad, but
that's the other thing I don't think people understand, because this movie looks so terrific. You're working with a pretty tight budget and not many shooting days.
Yeah, we did. We had 31 days and $11 million. And
what? Wait, really?
Yeah, and 267 scenes in a 110-page script. So I mean, like a lot of scenes in 31 days, and 2 Olympics, and the whole thing was period, which always makes it more expensive, obviously. So, and the skating sequences, I mean, we were scratching our heads trying to figure out how can we shoot them? How do we shoot something on ice? We can't afford cranes. Wait, we can't do that. We can't, how are we going to do it? And our camera operator piped up and he's like, I can skate if that helps. And we were like, what if we put the camera on him on the ice and he's skating? And so that's what we did. So he had and we shot on film, so the camera was heavier than, if you're shooting digital, obviously, slightly less equipment. And so he was on the ice, the camera on the shoulder, on his ice hockey skates, me on my skates, and we would kind of do this dance around each other. And it was great. And then we kind of nominated our crane shots very carefully.
Well, and also one of the things I really appreciate about the movie is I don't think I knew that Tonya Harding was a good skater. I don't think I knew just how good and how strong she was.
No, I mean that was what her point of difference really. She was a powerful skater. She didn't have the grace, but she had the power. And when you watch it on TV, I think with a long lens and a static shot, it all looks very graceful and easy. And that is half the art, the way it is for ballet. But I think that's what was so perfect about shooting it on the ice. When you're up close, you can see how much power it really requires to launch yourself in the air and do 3.5 rotations and land it. I mean, it's insanely difficult what she did, and we didn't realize how difficult the triple axel was going to be until it came time to shooting it. And we were like, okay, we said to Sarah, our skate choreographer, okay, so because we had skate doubles to do the big jumps, and you've had 10 years to practice, I couldn't do the big jumps, and insurance wouldn't let me, but like it was impossible anyway. But we're like, okay, so can the skate doubles do like a triple axel? And she's like, what? No. And we're like, oh, will we fly someone in who can do the triple axel? She was like, no, like no one can do a triple axel. It's 6 women in the world have done it since Tonya did it 25 years ago. It's still like a crazy impossible thing, and that's when we really appreciated the magnitude of what she had done. And so we had to CGI the triple axel in the end because it was just no one could do it.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And going back to some of these intense scenes, the movie is very funny, but then it has these really heart-wrenching scenes, and it like depicts abuse like so unflinchingly. Were they hard scenes to shoot?
Physically, no, because I've done, like, both Sebastian and I have done a lot of like fight choreography before, so just like blocking it out with the cameras is more of a mechanical thing. Emotionally, yes, to kind of track that and know that you're going to go back to this person when they've done that. And it really, it clicked for me, I think, when I saw, there's a documentary about Tonya when she was 15, and she's very matter-of-factly saying to camera, my mum's an alcoholic and she hits me and she beats me, and she was just listing it off like a grocery list, like it was just nothing. And that's when I was like, oh wow, I think the most horrific part of this abuse was the acceptance that it was just gonna be a fact of life. It was always gonna happen, and there was nothing unusual about it. And that's what was important with the breaking the fourth wall and kind of speaking to camera in a matter-of-fact way, was really to give a glimpse of how habitual the abuse was and how desensitized people become to it and how they can just accept that. And that to me was the most heartbreaking part of it, I think.
But what I love, and people may think this is weird, is that I think the movie has kind of a happy ending. I love that the final note is she wants you to know she's a good mother. And she broke that cycle of abuse.
Yeah, and she did. Yeah, when you talk to her, it was like what really gave me a sense of like, oh, okay, she's okay. When I met her, just to hear her speak about her husband now and her kid, who she adores. And it just, you can just tell that that's where she's found peace in her life, and she has broken that cycle of abuse. And it's really, really nice.
I mean, something I think would be hard to do multiple times is when Allison throws the knife at you, because you know it's coming as a person, but as a performer, you have to pretend like you don't know. Repeatedly. And I don't know how many times you shot that. And I mean, we did not flinch.
We didn't have a lot of time to shoot anything really. I mean, that was kind of like we kind of really went for it hard and fast, and then we moved on. But it was a fun scene. It was more I was like, just throw anything, because she couldn't just straight away pick up a knife, but we didn't, we didn't have time to block it out. We didn't have like breakaway glass and our stunt choreographer there and all that kind of stuff, because it's an indie film, so we were just finding anything in the house that we could throw at each other. I was like, throw that, yep, throw that too, throw that if you want, sure, throw the glass, I'll dodge it, don't worry about it. So by the time it came to the knife, I was like, whatever, just throw the knife, it's fine. It's fine. We had a rubber one for the the real intense throws. It was fine.
You know what I actually wanted to ask is the young actress who plays Tonya at an early age, McKenna Grace, who's so lovely. If you haven't seen Gifted, see it.
She's incredible.
When you're both playing a character at different ages, do you sort of consult with each other about like mannerisms or anything?
That's an interesting question. Sort of. I did definitely like let her know, like, these are the mannerisms I've picked up on. This is how I'm going to play it. But because I didn't have footage of her really at that age, it was kind of like, you do what you think, I think that's one of the best things about this job and being an actor is age is so inconsequential. It's really a level playing field. So, I mean, she's a fellow actor and that's her character too, and it's not for me to tell her how to do it. I really, respect her process and however she wanted to play that role. I did say, like, these are the things I've picked up on. I've done animal work or whatever it is, and I'm gonna, my walk is like this and whatever, but like you do you, like whatever you think. And she's so talented, like it's very evident you don't need to give her any advice. She knows what she's doing.
I want to take a couple audience questions. This is Stephen Payne. Right there. Wants to know, what was your favorite scene to perform in the film and why?
I love doing the wedding. I love a wedding. I've gotten married on screen like maybe 6 times now, and I always love a good wedding. It's so fun because it really does feel like a wedding day. Like everyone kind of, there's cake and like everyone's kind of like happy and dancing, and we obviously like had this 80s dress and the hair and right before we were shooting it, because we were just kind of like making that bit up. It was just, kind of a montage sequence. And I was like, Sebastian, because I fall down, I don't know about you guys, I fall down YouTube rabbit holes all the time.
God.
And one of my favorite things to YouTube is like when people choreograph a dance for their wedding dance, when they like start as like a nice dance and then they break into like doing the Running Man or something. I think that's amazing. So I've watched a million of those videos. I was like, don't you think Jeff and Tonya would have done that? And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, I'll show you on YouTube. And so I was like, let's just break out into like a ridiculous 80s, 90s dance. And so we like choreographed it like 2 minutes before shooting it, and it was just hilarious. And then we cut the cake, and then Sebastian threw it in my face, which wasn't planned, and like the whole thing was just so fun. I always loved shooting a wedding.
Oh yes,
yes,
producer.
yes.
You picked
it
the
actually
dress.
was the first dress we tried on. We had like a couple to try on, and as soon as I put it on, I was like, it's perfect.
Is there a real wedding video you were able to model it after? I seem to recall.
There's pictures and stuff of their wedding. Yeah, we replicated the hair and everything, the look of it. But yeah, it was fun. It was great, like putting that wedding together. We're like, plastic plates and forks, and like it was great. It was really fun.
You got married in real life like a year ago.
Right before we shot Tonya, actually.
Oh, so I was going to ask.
Tonya was our honeymoon. It was so romantic. Yeah. Middle of winter in Atlanta. It was cold.
I just heard you had to delay your honeymoon, and then you ran into Barack Obama?
Yes. Yes. Did you watch Ellen today? Yeah.
No, someone told me this.
Yes.
Was that today? That just came out today?
It was on today. I filmed it yesterday. And we postponed the honeymoon part because we were shooting, and then afterwards we went to Tahiti, and we like got to this island. It was like the last couple of days of our honeymoon. We were going to stay somewhere like really fancy, but we'd just come from staying on an island that had no electricity, and it was just a shack on the beach, and it was amazing, but it was like bare bones living. And then our last few days was going to be at this fancy resort, and it was lovely. But we got there and it was raining, and we're like, oh, what can we do here when it's raining? It's only like 20 villas on the island or whatever, and they're like, oh, well, there is a small gym, and we're like, oh, I guess we could go to the gym. Won't really do much, but whatever. And we like go to get on our bikes to ride there, and my husband Tom, who's also a producer on this film, is wearing like his oldest gym shorts, really old gym shorts, really short, really wide-legged old gym shorts with nothing underneath, and he goes to get on his bike, and I was like, whoa. I was like, babe, you can't wear those shorts. Literally, your balls are hanging out. Like, no, you cannot wear them. And he was like, oh, please, who are we going to see? Who are we going to run into? And I was like, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's like 10 villas. Like, we're not going to run into anyone. And so we're walking to this gym, which is legit the size of this platform here, very small. And we walk in, and there's Ellen running on a treadmill, and we were like, and then she was like, hi, oh, hi, I'm Ellen. And I was like, hello, Margot, this is Tom. And she was like, this is my wife, Portia. And I was like, oh, wonderful. Ellen and Portia are here. Oh, my God. And then she was like, and have you met Barack? And I was like, no. Oh, my God. Come again? She was like, yes, it was literally Barack Obama. And then we had to do this whole stretching like yoga class with Tom in these little shorts, and Obama like stepping over his legs to put weights down and stuff like that. And he's like, the gym instructor keeps going like, lunge, Tom, lunge. And Tom's like, he's trying to like cross his legs while lunging. It was so funny. It was hilarious. Yeah.
Barack, former President Obama.
Yeah.
He was familiar with your work.
Yeah, he was like, he knew who I was, and he was like, you're a very talented actress. And I was like, oh my God, Obama knows who I am. And he was like, yeah, we were just talking about you the other night. I was like, where are you? Wow, oh my God. Yeah, it was crazy.
I want to believe he's a big Harley Quinn fan.
He didn't say that, but maybe.
By the way, what was it like for you? There were so many Harley Quinns not last Halloween, but the Halloween before.
Yeah.
I mean, does that tickle you to see that?
Yeah,
or
it was
is weird?
amazing.
Yeah.
It was so cool, especially because heaps of dudes dressed up as Harley as well, and that made me so happy because every Halloween, like the funnest, craziest characters are always like a dude character, so I'm always dressed up as the dudes. And I was like, ha, this Halloween the chicks are the coolest, craziest character, and you're going to dress up as our one. That was awesome.
I have a feeling there'll be some Tonyas this year.
I was going to go as Lavana this year. Yeah, I was really excited about it. But then my best friend also has her birthday on Halloween, and she picked like a Mexican fiesta themed, and I was like, I'm going to have to do Lavana next year.
Oh my God! Well, that everyone will
actually know what I'm
great.
dressed up as this time. Yeah.
Finally, we have a question from, is it Maggie? Yeah, Maggie wants to know if you can talk about the time before you broke through as an actor, and how you dealt with having doubt or fear. I mean, it's a pretty exciting time with the whole Time's Up movement, and so many like I said, so many strong female roles this year. I mean, can you compare sort of when you first broke through to now?
Yeah, I've definitely seen a huge shift in the material, and everyone's obviously cottoned onto the fact that more females buy movie tickets than males, therefore maybe they'd want to see more females on screen. And I've definitely, in my opinion, I've seen way more scripts that are more female centric with great female characters, and I think the next wave of change is to have female storytellers tell those stories, which is amazing, and everyone's really making an effort to do, I find. Are
you interested in directing?
I am, yeah. Not yet, not for a couple of years, but yeah, that's always been a dream of mine.
That's amazing. Well, I do want to remind everyone this movie is still in theaters. Go see it again. I've seen it 4 times, actually, because everyone wants to go see it. Yeah. I would have watched it tonight, but it was full. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on a great year, a great performance. And thank you guys for being a great audience.
Thank you for watching it. Thank you.